Hello everybody. Hello everybody, Happy New Year. This is my first video for the year. My name is Shola Abulu. I'm the principal consultant of Shola Abulu and Associates. We are a strategy and communications training and consulting firm based in Lagos, Nigeria. We are committed to enabling businesses, brands, institutions, and entities achieve their desired objectives through strategic communication, reputation, risk management, and organizational effectiveness. Yeah, that's exactly what we do. Welcome to this channel. If this is your first time on board, welcome. And please remember to like and subscribe. So today I'm going to be doing a series of videos over the next few episodes where we're going to be talking about basic things that every communications professional should have, what you can do to be highly effective, the attributes of highly effective senior professionals, that sort of thing. Just sort of based on a number of questions or things that have come up in conversations that I've had recently. So I realized that there are a lot of people who want to transition into communications. I come across people like that, or people who have transitioned and they're not quite sure, what is the mix of things that they should have. I noticed that there is not enough guidance out there for communications professionals in terms of, what the mix of their competencies should be like. If you happen to work in an organization where you have all of that, then, count yourself very lucky and blessed. Many people don't have that, so they have to sort of like go outside of that. I happen to work somewhere where there was a very developed competence framework for communications professionals. After a while, when I joined, it wasn't like that, but it was a global company. So after a while, it was developed and it sort of helped and guided a number of us in terms of, where we could possibly go. So what I have here are basic skills that, looking back over the years, I have about 30 plus experience in core communications. I think about maybe 15 or so out of those years. Before then, it was other things. But anyways, let's just say over 15 to 20 years now, of about 15 years, what I'm going to share with you are the basic skills that I see that every person who calls themselves or who regards themselves as a communications professional, you should have these basic skills in different degrees. Of course, with every skill, we talk about knowledge level, we talk about skilled level, we talk about mastery level. So anything that I'm talking about here, just look, assess yourself according to it if you're a communications professional, and then think about what level are you on any of these things. And maybe in subsequent ones, we talk about how to describe, what each of the levels would look like. So let's get right into it. And these videos are going to be very short. I'm planning them to about 20 minutes. I wasn't timing myself, but that's the plan. So first of all, communication strategy development. This is the first thing. If you are a communication professional, you must be able to create a communication strategy. You must know how you must be able to go through that process or work an organization or a team or individual or a leader or a management team through a process of developing a communication strategy for any business problem or activity or event that they come across. That means you must know that whole process of, okay, how do you start? What's the problem I'm trying to solve? Who is the audience? What does success look like? What message do we need to pass across? What do we need to do? Who are the stakeholders? What do the people want them to know, feel, and do? What do we then do? What's the messaging? What platform? Who is going to be speaking where, what, how? How do we know when we've achieved success? You have to understand that A to Z flow. And what I've talked through, I have another video. If you check onto the channel, you see another video where we go through this process of how to actually develop a com strategy. So you need to know that from a practical point of view, not just knowing it, because again, now looking at the three levels of the skills, if you are aware of it, then okay, you have the knowledge of it, but then are you able to practice it? Are you able to bring it to bear in a in a multi-sector context? So for instance, I mean, like someone like me, if any context, literally, I mean, whether it's business, whether it's political, whether it's policy-based, whether it is institutional, whether it's faith-based, come to me with an organizational problem and I would help you. I can build a communication strategy around it. All I just need to know is understand. Of course, there's certain types of problems that if I was to hear, I'd be like, you know what, I don't really think communications is what you need at this stage, or I think it's more of stakeholder management, but then we can then work on the messaging to the stakeholders, we can work on the mapping. So generally, this is a basic. Now, whether you are at mastery level, whether you are at skilled level, or you have knowledge level, you need to have this as a basic. If you don't know how to develop or create a communication strategy, then really you're not a communications professional, regardless of whatever title you have where you're working. The second, very closely linked to that, and I separated them because they are different, is they're related or almost, but then they're different in that communications planning, the structure, how to build a communication structure, how to what communications processes look like, and what communications matrix look like. Now, to be honest, this entire part, it can almost be a course by itself. And by the way, we have about 5 courses running over this period. You will see the teasers on them also on this channel. And one of them, we deal with some of these things on the strategic communications course. So if you would like to learn more, I would recommend that you sign up for those courses, and you would see the link where we are actually registering interest and asking people to enroll into courses. You'll see it in the description in this video and all the other ones that I'm going to do subsequently. So communications planning is when you are now able to develop a plan based on the strategy. Remember, the strategy is different. The strategy is really about the framework in terms of how we're approaching this problem. What do we think we can do on a high level? What does success look like? What is the strategy is really what you're going to sell to management. It's the product that you're going to give management. You're not going to give management your plan. Your plan is what stays within your team. So, the strategy is very much what is the problem? What is the nature of the problem? How is it presenting itself? What can communications do about it? What do we think we can, what does success look like, and how we're going to get there? But then the planning then dives into that how, and then makes it very granular in terms of place, where, what, who, why, when, and all of that. And then the structure that you need to build around the communications. I mean, and I don't want to, like I said, this is really going to be quite short video, so I can't go into too much detail. But the structure can be, are you setting up a team? What kind of skills is the team going to have? What's the working mechanisms that you're going to use? What's the delivery mechanism that is going to be around that structure? Is it social media? Is it more stakeholder engagement? Is it more of writing? Is it more of engagement? What kind of structure are you building? I have found out that the absence of a tight communication structure in an organization or in a situation really impacts on what you're able to deliver. For instance, if you want to do internal communications, if you don't set up a structure around that's the internal communications effort, you're not going to have it in place, because internal communications is just not about, wake up and I write something. There has to be a whole structure that comes from the organization, from the business to the organization, from the organization to the leadership to the comms people, and then out. So you need to build that structure. People need to come together and agree that this is how internal communications is going to function. These are the do's and the don'ts. This is the way in which it is done. These are the guardrails. This is the scope of it. This is the reach of it. And then you can then begin to deliver and then improve as you go. But until you build that structure, you're not going to be able to do anything. So I think every comms professional has that, because until you know that you are not able to deliver, and I see a lot of people struggling in their roles, they get into a team. In fact, most communications professionals, when they get a new job, they get a new job in a place where there is no existing comm structure. So if there is no existing comm structure, you have to build it. And this applies both for internal comms and external comms, which is why you get to some organizations, you find the comms professional is struggling to tell stories, is struggling to, build content, because there is no structure. There is no structure for a framework for stories to be harvested from inside the organization, from the field locations out there. You have to build it. These were things I found out when I was working. So people just employ and they're like, oh, they don't, nobody tells you that you're going to have to build a comp structure for yourself. You're going to have to build it. And what that means is that, and by the way, it will not be a priority for anybody in the organization, except you're in a marketing or retail context where they've really been waiting for it and that they cannot deliver on their targets except your communication structure is built. But if they can actually do their work without you, or do you understand? I mean, they're not really like a marketing company, or there's no interdependency or obvious interdependency between the comms role and their role, you will have a lot of work to do before you can get them to begin to work with you on the structure. What that then means is that you then have to find a what's in it for them in what you're doing and what you're building. Of course, the structure must be relevant to the business. So the structure too cannot be running this way and then the business is running that way. So you have to find a way to bring both together. Again, your ability to do that is what determines whether you are on skilled level or mastery or knowledge. If you're just on the awareness level, you're not likely to be able to do this. So processes, again, is all tied to the structure. If you have a structure in place, you will build processes. Processes are what make up the structure. So processes around how I get stories, how I get content, what's the approval process like, what's the clearance process like, what's the lead time process like, what's the service level process like, what are the quality standards that we put in place for the communications that we develop, that we create, that we push out. And then finally, the metrics. How do we know, what measurements, how do we, what is the agreed metrics that we're going to use to know if we succeed? So these are just basic things. And the reason why I'm taking this approach is because I see that a lot of people were just doing everyday work based on the work that is given to us in the organization that we have. My observation is this: there are very few companies. I mean, I've worked with a number of organizations in my consulting role, set up my firm, we work across sectors. There are very few clients or organizations that I step into that have an established and well-formed communication structure. In fact, well, very few. I don't want to say none, but yeah, close to that, very few. And of course, some are weaker, some are stronger than others and that kind of thing. But, most people don't have a communication structure. They don't have processes. They rarely have plans, and they definitely do not have metrics. So, and what you find, if that number 2 is absent, the comms person is going to struggle a lot. So if you find yourself in that role, until you resolve that number 2, you're going to have a lot of headache. So which is why I say, but if you're a comms professional, you should find a way to do this. Now let's move on. So number 3, stakeholder engagement framework. That's there is a framework called the Stakeholder Engagement Framework. We talk about it in module 3, I think, module 3 of the Strategic Communications course, which is coming up on February 29. We run that particular course 4 times a year. The other courses that we have, we only run 1 or 2 times a year. But for the Strategic Comms course, because it's like the foundation course, we plan to run that about 4 times a year. The next one is coming up on the 29th of February. The first one happened on the 30th of November, and it was well attended. We had people from different parts of the world. It's an online full-day course. So if you feel you want to attend and you want to know a little bit more about what I'm sharing on this slide and what I will share in the other slides, the other videos that I'm going to put up, then you can also sign up. And like I said, the details are in the descriptions below. So stakeholder engagement framework, that's really a framework that's just showing how you map your stakeholders, your audiences, and how you begin to engage them. Now, a lot of what I share when I talk about comms, I think sometimes it sounds simplistic. People are like, yeah, it makes sense, it's logical. But then the reason why a lot of communications fail through is simply because, as simple and as logical as it is, it doesn't come naturally. If you do not know, some of the things that I learned through the framework, there are things that if someone didn't teach you, you can't pick it up on your own. Even if you are able to somehow be that kind of person that you sort of like learned, or somehow you just intuitively knew how to do certain things, you can't understand it in that structured way at all times without the knowledge of the framework. You really have to learn it. It's just the way it is. And I remember when I showed the framework, at the session that we had in November, in the online session we had in November, mostly to mid-career people, these were not early comers. A lot of them were like, oh, wow, this does make sense. And they were like, oh, yes, I know this. But then this emphasizes it a little bit more, because we then went into the building blocks of the framework and how we chose. And what it does for you is that it makes you look at your entire stakeholder landscape and begin to look at the differences and look at the people from their own perspective, rather than you looking at them based on your own internal perspective, because there's a portion at which you look at what their interests are, in what way they can influence, the work or the initiative that you're involved with, and what is it that they need from you in order for them to do what you want them to do. It also helps you to make a difference between the most influential stakeholders and those that are highly interested in what you're doing. Because sometimes, and this happens a lot, we're paying a lot of attention to people that we think are very influential, but then they have very little interest in what we're doing. So it also helps you, it's also dynamic. So it also makes you realize that the stakeholder landscape is changing. And this applies both to external stakeholders and internal stakeholders. So sometimes, you see this very often. So for instance, in your office, on a particular, if you're a comms person, comms professional, then I think, this is for comms professional. So you're a comms professional. On some issues, the most influential stakeholder is your direct boss. On some other programs, it is someone else. It may be a general manager in another division. It may be a director. It may be the CEO of one of the companies or something. So you have to be able to make that adaptability where you understand that on this particular issue, this person is the key stakeholder, is the most influential, has the most interest, is the most engaged on this issue. Therefore, I will manage this person closely. This other person, even though he's my direct boss, he's not really interested in this stuff. Sometimes the bosses are not interested in certain things. So you keep them informed. And the stakeholder framework gives you that framework to place everybody where they are at on every issue or event as it comes across. What it does for you is that it keeps you from making the mistake of treating everybody the same way, because that is a big mistake. It's a big mistake. So if you're a comms professional and you don't know how to use the stakeholder management framework, actually I should actually call it the management framework, not the engagement framework. It's actually stakeholder management, because it's not just about engaging the stakeholder. It's about, oh, I didn't want to show the whole thing. It's about managing, okay, I'll change it afterwards. It's about managing the whole relationship. So I'll change that to management afterwards. So number 4, narrative development and message drafting. Now we're getting, so these first 3, I would say, are the fundamentals. At this point now, number 4, I'm getting into a little bit more fundamental, but a bit specialist, but fundamental. But I think this is also fundamental, but let's just take it. I think for me, the first 3, I would not even compromise on those 3. You need to have those. Now the 4th, this one, narrative development and message drafting. Every communications professional worth their salt, you should be able to write a narrative. You should be able to write a one-pager about your business, about the brand, the organization, the institution, or the event or the initiative that you're supporting. And you should be able to do it very fast. If you are scratching your, and I ask you right now, or like, let's assume it's an interview environment, and I tell you in 5 minutes, can you share me a narrative about your company, about who they are, where they're coming from, what their history is, what their brand story is, and you're unable to do that, then you're not, whatever it is you're not a communications professional, because communications professionals, communications is very much about expressive language. So it's about written language, it's about oral language. You have to be able to express yourself. If you as a comms person struggle with expressing yourself, then how are you going to help the organization express itself? Because you are the one that's supposed to teach the organization how to express itself. So you have to spend a lot of time on working narratives, writing, message drafting, and that kind of thing. And for me particularly, I think I always liked reading and writing, but I'm so happy that over the years in my job, I actually worked on my career sort of like, I always look for opportunities, and my jobs always gave me opportunities to write, develop presentations and things like that, because it's really helped me now in my consulting life, because I can create like 50 slides for you in 6 hours, you know, in 4 hours. I can write stories, I can write a blog post like 500 words in like 10 minutes or 20 minutes. You know, it's really just about me getting into the zone, and I'm doing it. You know, it's not even, I don't even count it as work. And why? Because that is a skill that I need all the time. And that is what sets me apart. That's, you know, and when you say you're a professional, it's like an artist. An artist should be able to draw a sketch on hand. I mean, when somebody's an artist, you know, because they're literally able to, I mean, it may not be a finished painting, it's not going to be a finished like oil painting, but they can draw a sketch for you and be like, oh, they can tell you their idea. Same thing with an architect. An architect is, you know, you're discussing a design with an architect, and it's like, okay, if you're not getting what I'm saying, you just start drawing and be like, oh yeah, this is what I mean. And then, you know, they just give you a sketch and you get the feel. The reason why they're able to do that, they're professionals. This is what they do. They have the skills, they have the competencies. So it's not just to be calling ourselves professionals. That's what I want to make very clear. A comms professional means you are very good at this. You know, there's some edge that you have. The same thing, whether it's fashion, whether it's design, whatever it is, there is something that you have, and you are very good at it because you are talented, you are gifted for it, and you've also gotten experience and expertise in that area. So people see that you're able to do it. So, I mean, in my former place of work, they used to call us wordsmiths. So people know that you can quickly come up with a narrative, and you're somebody that, okay, there's an issue, we need to go to the press, you can quickly draft something. And we learn by doing. You know, there's a craft element of our profession. There is a learning element of the profession as well, and both should go side by side. So there are things you need to train for in, you know, formal classroom training. There are things you need to study for, and then there's the practice, there's the craft of it. We must never forget that there's a lot of that in our profession, and I think a lot of people, sometimes we underestimate the importance of that craft. But the craft is really important, because it's the craft that then makes you learn by doing, makes you an expert. You cannot become skilled at anything without developing a craft. You know, skill has to do with doing. So skilled is not that, oh, because I've spent 5 years on the job, that's why I'm skilled. No, all it just means that you start in one job for 5 years. That doesn't mean anything. But the skill is what you have learned by doing a number of things repeatedly in different contexts with good results over a period. That's how skill is developed. So number 5, this is very important as well. Research, data, and insights. You have to be somebody who is not afraid to get into the details to find out what's going on. And I know some people are, you know, better at doing this. I know some people who their research is by talking to people. And that there's some people like us who like to read data and statistics. I actually like both. And I think why I put research, data, and insights is because there is what research you can get by research. There's the storyline that you can get from research. There's also the storyline that emerges from the data that you're presented with. And that's another thing. Don't what you then get out of it is the insights. And that is very personal. So research you can get from external sources or internal sources. Data too you can get from external and internal sources. But insights should be yours. Even if you are taking insights that have already been, curated from the research and the data, you have to then take it and put it into the context of the organization. Don't just do a chat GPT copy and paste and dump, which I hear some people do now. But what does this mean to you? You that sit in the space, you that understand where the shoe pinches, you that are in the organization or you are consulting for them, help them make sense of this data, and then bring extra, how would I say, sources from outside of the environment that is relevant, that can also help to find more meaning. This particularly is very important for any communications professional. I think for me, if I want to look at some of the things that have always made me stand out in my jobs over even when I was a paid employee, and now it's this number 5 more than anything else, because senior leaders particularly you get their attention when you tell them something that they do not know, and it's credible and verifiable data and information. So I put a lot of effort in making sure that I'm very strong on number 5 before I go into any meeting. I've done my research. I have a storyline around what I feel the issue is and what we need to do, and I have some insights to back it up. And there will be new, fresh insights. So again, you need to know a bit about media intelligence and monitoring. So you need to know how the media in your relevant media in your landscape works. So, what kind of business you are in, how does it work in your sector, how are other peer companies using the media, how does, the media, what kind of relationship does the sector have with the media, what kind of relationship does your organization have with the media, what kind of relationship should they have? Then how do you use the media to help the organization to achieve its objectives, either from a listening perspective, conversation monitoring perspective, and campaign effectiveness or whatever it may be. But just providing those insights. For me, I use media a lot for listening. I follow the conversations that are relevant to what any business or organization that I'm supporting is anything that's relevant to them. I make sure I follow it, and when necessary, I chip it in. I use that to help myself to advise and guide the organization as much as I can. And then finally, social media intelligence and insights as well. So the reason why I differentiated between the two, because they are two different things, and depending on the kind of business that you support, one may be more important than the other. If you're working for a traditional brick and mortar institution that has a physical office and is in a very traditional sector like energy, construction, retail, manufacturing, professional services, then very much number 6 is very important to you, as well as 7. I would say maybe 70-30, depending on the kind of business that you do. If you're working in a fintech, kind of setting, or technology solutions or IT-based, new age, entertainment, lifestyle type of thing, perhaps 7 would be more important to you, but 6 is also relevant as well. But it's that kind of thing. Definitely, if you're working for government, if you're working for government, both are important, because social media conversation, as well as what the traditional media is saying and doing in areas that are relevant, and what the citizen, how the citizen sentiment is also moving, you need to be on top of that. So these are the 7 things I would say, that 7 basic skills that I think every communications professional should have. So knowing how to use the media, how to leverage your platforms, how media operates, create difference between print, TV, and radio, and how that plays out on social media, all the platforms that are relevant and the conversations that are going on, and why that is important to you all. So if I left out anyone that you think is very important, please just drop a line in the comments and let me know, and we'll get to you. So follow me also on LinkedIn. My name is Shola Abulu. I'd love to hear from you, but comments, please. And please don't forget to like and subscribe. So see you on the next video as well. And thank you for joining me. And please share this to anyone that you also think would love to watch this as well. Thank you.